Welcome to Invest Well, Be Well, a podcast for wiser investing and stronger living. I'm Rusty Vanneman, longtime investment professional, and I'm joined each week by my co-host, Robin Murray.
Thanks, Rusty. I'm a storyteller and journalist, and I am so excited to explore the ideas, insights, and people shaping the intersection of performance and purpose.
This podcast is for thoughtful investors and driven professionals who want to grow in their portfolios and in their personal lives.
We'll talk long-term investing, behavioral finance, personal development, and what it takes to live and work with intention.
So let's get started. Let's invest well and be well together.
This podcast is brought to you by Main Management LLC. Since 2002, Main has been recognized as an ETF strategist that combines an institutional process with the personalized service of a boutique firm. Our guest today is Skyler Steinke. He is managing director at the Ascent Group, and he had some really interesting takeaways. It was a pretty good interview. I like that.
I think that obviously we had a really important topic to talk about, and then on the smarter living side, a lot of really cool stuff. But again, Skyler is somebody, basically what he does professionally, he helps investors navigate alternatives, digital assets, and really one of the primary topics for this podcast interview was the concept of tokenization. And again, as a key topic for today's interview. He also co-hosts his own podcast called the Alt Funds Network, and there he explores new investment trends shaping the future. Beyond that, Skylar is passionate about functional medicine and optimizing his health for better energy, focus, and decision-making. So there was a lot of really cool, fun stuff we talked about. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, well, this topic of tokenization was something that was new to me, but super interesting. And he also, I don't know if he mentioned it in the podcast or if it was before we started recording, but he used to work at an AI firm that he was like helping develop AI and do a language learning and all that kind of stuff. So he was able to talk a little bit about that as well, and just kind of really interesting to hear sort of these future trends in the industry and where he thinks it's going. And also, yeah, a lot of great biohacks, which I'm sure you appreciated.
Heck yeah. Tokenization, the reason why we made this a topic for our podcast is that there's a lot of smart people I really respect in the industry, and they think this is really important. It's the future of finance. It's the future of investing. And so we really wanted to plant seeds and, really for people to think about it, create an awareness, maybe spur some additional education. I need to learn more about it myself. But anyway, in addition, of course, it was a real cherry on top that Skylar was so into his health and some of the practices that he does. And I thought there were a lot of really cool recommendations there.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, let's take a listen. Well, Skylar, welcome to the show. Welcome to Invest Well, Be Well.
Thank you, Robin and Rusty, for having me.
Yeah.
You got it. Well, we have some fun topics and questions for you today. But the first question is maybe the most important. And that is, we need a walk-up song to set the tone for this interview.
We have to have one, right?
That's right.
So, my walk-up song probably would be, I'd say in the morning, it's probably Lose Yourself by Eminem. Crazy Day goes to Dust in the Wind with probably Kansas at the end of the day. Depending on the wind, right?
We just got a walk-up song and at the end of the day walk-off song too. So up to bat, and there we go. I like it.
There you go.
Pretty good. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll add them both to the playlist.
Yeah, but I guess Lose Yourself, obviously, kind of just that, that drive, that grit, that tenacity to move forward in life. Those are kind of the things I think about when I think about that song. So very upbeat, you guys know.
Well, hopefully you don't get any spaghetti on your shirt during this interview.
There you go. We're in a dark color today, so we're good.
All right. So, Skylar, you have spent more than 2 decades in this industry and now focus on alternatives and digital assets. Let's just dive right in here. What drew you into this space originally?
It's a great question. Yeah, because this is kind of maybe not known to many people. I was not planning to go into finance at all. I actually went in the military, U.S. Marine Corps, right out of high school as a linguist. And I got out early for having asthma, which I didn't know I had. So medical discharge, and I came back to the Midwest where I'm from. And on a whim, I rolled the dice and saw a job offer at TD Ameritrade way back when, which was headquartered in Omaha at the time, and said, hey, let's go for it. So that was kind of my first foray into finance. And then a few years later, got into fund administration at Gemini Fund Services, now Ultima. So really was not planning on going down that track. At a different different path. So it was a bit of a big change in my life, if you will, at a young age, thinking you were going to go one way and making a whole different decision. But it ended up being the best decision I made for my career, honestly. So I really got into learning the business from the ground up and understanding just how to go about different aspects of the business. And really, from that lens, I was a bit of a contrarian in a lot of ways because I asked a lot of questions, and I'm a bit of a lifelong learner. So I really kind of dug into the details where maybe other folks would just say, we'll just pass on that topic and move on. So yeah, definitely a unique perspective in the space, getting in there early on, getting into finance, into asset management, and obviously into the back office fund administration. And then obviously what all that entailed from a digital asset perspective, different asset classes, different structures. And that to me, that was actually the fun part, because it's different conversations every day with folks. And then going home and talking to your family and friends and what they perceive in finance versus what you are dealing with from an insider point of view, which is fascinating.
Right. Got a lot of Marines on the show lately.
I know we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Skylar, a lot of investors will hear that term, alternatives, right? But they aren't sure what exactly it really means. So how do you define alternatives?
That's a great question. Alternatives can mean a lot to different people. I mean, at the very simplest form, in my view, just from my career, it's alternative. Alternatives means to me is anything that's alternative to the traditional stock market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? That maybe it's not correlated to the regular markets as far as that goes. So you have the private markets that, are non-correlated or kind of investing in esoteric things. Those are things of what I think of when I think of alternatives. Now there's some sets of that too, like liquid alts, retail alts, those different aspects or subsets to alternatives. But at a high level, I just view it as anything that's not the standard stocks, bonds, mutual funds framework.
All right. So obviously part of this podcast is about wise investing. So what role do alternatives play in building sound long-term portfolios along those traditional asset classes such as stocks and bonds?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and it's become more prominent, probably, for about 7 to 10 years, right? As we see different cycles in the industry and the markets happening, where it's becoming more of a prominent topic to talk about, how do we gather alpha? And with the 60-40 model, not really working out the way we thought it used to be now current state, right? So I think it's playing a more of a pivotal role going forward, given kind of just the change in globally or dynamics, whether it be economics, how we work in this current financial paradigm. So definitely, I would say I have a lot of conversations with financial advisors, with firms saying, hey, we're looking for another toolkit in our bag, shall we say, to add to our clients' bottom line.
I've got a question on alternatives, kind of an issue that pops up with many investors, and that is liquidity is often a challenge in many alternatives. So how should investors and advisors think about the liquidity trade-offs when considering these investments?
Yeah, great question. This comes up quite a bit too from the liquidity premium as far as that goes. So there is an aspect to that, taking on the risk reward situation. Most people think if it's less liquid, then it's higher risk, and that's really kind of the alternatives. That's been a conversation, but by taking on a less liquid product or investment, you can enhance your alpha, your return, right? So there's a premium to taking on that additional illiquidity. And now there are certain products now are becoming more liquid in the alternative space. So the liquidity paradigm is changing a bit based on the asset classes that are out there, I will say, as well, given that change in digital assets and other things that are available to say today.
So I want to ask you about tokenization, which is a big theme in finance right now. How do you explain what that means, tokenization, in simple, practical terms to investors really new to it?
Yeah, great question. Tokenization has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. At the very, when you distill everything to the bottom line, it's really the digitalization and fractionalization of an investment. So you think of like an example of real estate. Someone can tokenize a real estate investment. So I can have a token and I want a part of that investment that is physical in the real world, but digital in a wallet, shall we say, online. So there's this aspect of tokenization that is really kind of changing the way we work in the financial sector on a daily basis. So what does it do? What is tokenization and kind of brass tacks, what are the main use cases? I always ask, and talk to people about this. It's really about kind of democratizing finance, giving access to alternatives, like we're talking about here, that have been traditionally hard to access, and more transparency and more liquidity at scale as far as that goes. So you're breaking down a new technology paradigm that allows people to move quickly. So that's another thing with risk, lowers risk when you have counterparties that you're taking, T+1 or, taking a certain amount of time to settle. And a good example of a few of these projects on tokenization, one is like Hamilton Lane, money market fund out there. And the first question is, why would you tokenize a liquid fund, a money market fund that values daily? Well, if you can value in real time, and sell faster, your counterparty risk is further mitigated, and you can do things faster, quicker. That adds a whole new another way of operating from a back office point of view too. So, but from an investor point of view, it's really the access to additional types of products and more transparency, and giving them more potentially like secondary markets, more liquidity, which is what a lot of these tokenization frameworks are coming out. There's a lot of platforms out there globally that are being created in the secondary market. Now, it's not here current state today from a U.S. perspective, given the regulations have opened up this year. We're hoping for that, but definitely it is a very interesting way to think about how we're going to operate. And I fully think, 5-10 years down the road, tokenization will be, pretty mainstream. Everything will be tokenized. They're talking about stocks being tokenized, everything being tokenized digitally on chain, as they call it, as far as that goes.
So you gave a couple of examples, but what are some other real world assets that you're seeing that are being tokenized today? And where do you think is the strongest momentum?
Yeah, great question. I think today the first thing is probably treasuries or money market funds. You see that as the first use case for a lot of folks. Real estate is another one. Real estate is a pretty good use case. Private credit, lending and borrowing is another one I'm seeing as well. And then when you're able to kind of borrow money against a private investment, for example, in a private fund, if I can tokenize that and give fractional and transparent insight into what's happening underneath that fund, now I can open up additional opportunities there. So those are some of the high level use cases that are actually not, pie in the sky. They're happening in real time right now.
So tokenization, it's a real thing. It's the future of finance and investing. And you already talked about some of the benefits, but what are some of the risks or challenges that still exist with tokenization that financial advisors and investors should keep in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. With the new innovative technologies and solutions, you gather a good amount of risk, right? And really the biggest, the initial one is the regulatory risk. It's relatively new, especially in the U.S. We did have some legislation passed this year, which will definitely help. And the U.S. has now opened up with the change in political regime going forward to give us hopefully a way to access and utilize tokenization in the U.S. going forward. But yeah, obviously regulation is probably the first big one that comes to mind for many folks. With any new technology, things that are happening in the blockchain, as they call it, everything's built on blockchain. Smart contract risk, moving data investments from systems and tools to another system and tool or platform carries inherent risk. So those are the things, when you're settling on a new technology platform, if you're moving transactions or data in a brand new paradigm, some things can go wrong, obviously, as we all know, right? So those are some of the things as we kind of move forward in this new paradigm that it'll be important to pay attention to. And even just the process and how it happens on the blockchain. There's a lot of players that are like moving fast to kind of build all these things out. So you have new players coming in the space that are, things haven't been tested and built out yet. So you have some of that. So you really have to know who you're working with from a vendor perspective. Do they have the expertise to handle this? Or is this something new that they're starting to kind of prove out themselves? So those are the things I would say: counterparty risk, technology risk, are some of the big ones I would say, and regulations, as we talked about, for folks to pay attention to.
All right, so tokenization is something that, again, it's happening and education is required. And hopefully this podcast helps a lot of people listening to sort of start thinking about it more. But let's move to another topic, which I think a lot more people are embracing and probably a lot more still need to do so, and that is artificial intelligence. So how is using AI and building AI solutions in the fund services and asset management industry, how are people using it? How should they use that? And how is it upskilling for investment professionals in our profession?
Very, very great question. And this this seems to be a hot button for many people in our industry now. Just kind of what do we do? Because AI, you get the folks that have been in AI for a long time, for 50 plus years. This has been around forever. But the new paradigm is generative AI, ChatGPT, all these things paved the way to a new paradigm of how we operate, how we can do things faster, quicker, easier for ourselves, working in our various roles at various companies, or for our clients. So I think just looking at how things are moving so fast, and this is very synergistic to what's happening, what we just talked about with tokenization, by the way, I would say, where you have unstructured, data and information, and in our industry, everything is done, even still in 2025 today, on legacy systems and tools. Mm-hmm. So very spreadsheet heavy still in 2025, I would say, from our industry's perspective. So when you have that challenge or framework, adding a different technology element that can take that we've been doing on a spreadsheet and move it into an automated environment at scale and customized at scale is a true innovative thought process that our industry could definitely utilize in a lot of different ways, both on the operations side, sales, marketing. It covers all functions. But again, with that, there is, like we talked about with tokenization, there is risk to making sure that is secure. You're using, making sure not put your client's data in platforms and things like that. So it can be definitely a catalyst for growth and scale, but it also can be a definite hindrance if you don't know what you're doing and you're not taking the appropriate steps from a safeguard and security perspective.
So how about some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so from an AI perspective, just give you some examples in our industry that we've kind of gone through is, like a portfolio reconciliation. A lot of times in a fund, this is done at month end or quarter end, but throughout the month, this is unlike a mutual fund, but it's more in the private markets. This is not done daily, right? But taking different systems and tools that are fragmented, whether it be accounting systems, portals, prime brokers, and reconciling that activity on a daily basis like you would in a mutual fund, but it's all done with AI. And you still have the human in the loop. So that's a great use case from an operations, fund ops perspective to take, what was more, antiquated and manual and move that into more of just a review environment. And then on the front end, from an investor point of view, going through due diligence process can be done where, you can have a DDQ and have a kind of your knowledge base internally that can answer those questions. So when you get those requests coming in, whether you be an investor or, on the other side as a manager, financial advisor, you're getting that from your clients, you can fill those out, automatically and be 80 to 90% done versus taking hours or weeks to get some type of DDQ package completed. Other aspects is content, sales and marketing. That's obviously a big one people talk about. But the keys with those is just making sure you have, a good, knowledge base and, garbage in, garbage out. So those are the things, people are trying to kind of figure out in real time, whether it be operations, front office, middle office, back office, obviously the sales and marketing flows. So there's a lot of different ways to move that forward. But yeah, I'd say those are the big ones I see with specific to our industry are the operations ones. And then also from a scaling of sales and marketing content across various counterparties in our industry.
This episode of Invest Well, Be Well is brought to you by Main Management LLC, a pioneer in actively managed ETFs since 2002. Main Management starts with a clear fiduciary focus, delivering the transparency and personal attention you'd expect from a boutique firm. They provide financial advisors with solutions, not products. Main also believes investors should keep more of what they earn, emphasizing net of fee after-tax performance to help clients retain more of their returns. I've known Main Management for years. I've met thousands of managers over the course of my career, and one quality I really value: they invest alongside their clients. They eat their own cooking. Over 10% of the assets they manage are their own partner assets, and more than half of the firm are partners themselves. That says a lot. To learn more about Main strategies, including buy right hedged equity, U.S. sector rotation, thematic innovation, and all asset models, please visit their website at mainmgt.com.
All right, so we've talked about the investing side, but the other theme for this podcast is about smarter living. So you are passionate about health, functional medicine, and biohacking. What sparked your interest in this side of life?
Yes, that's a big topic. Yes, and for me, it was really, since I've kind of been very much a, regimented person in my life, always I was also an athlete, wanting to kind of move forward, very competitive. Health tends to be kind of a byproduct of people thinking about it. They don't think about it until it's a problem. A lot of times you're moving fast in your career. And you talk to a lot of people in our industry that are, very wealthy. And I always got the same answer. It's like, Skylar, this is all great, but when you get older, if you don't take care of your health now, you're going to be spending your wealth on your health problems later, right? So that really kind of hit home for me. And in the midst of that, I also had a couple health crises in my past history that led me like, okay, I really need to take care of this. I know what I'm doing. I'm a former athlete. I know how to take care of myself, but what can I do as I get older, as we all do, to keep that energy level up, to making sure I'm taking care of myself, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, because everything is connected in my view. If you're not, on your A game, you don't have that energy level going into a meeting. If you're trying to close a deal in sales, as one example, you may not win the deal, or maybe we're burning the candle at both ends, and maybe that's just a temporary thing. But when you take care of your health, you can handle that stress temporarily a lot better than someone who's just burning the candle at both ends, is dumpster fire in their diet, how they're handling their day-to-day routine. So those are the things I'd say that, really kind of hit home for me early on in life as a young man. And then also later on in my career, as we've talked to a lot of folks, you travel quite a bit, you go to great meetings and have great food, all these things in our industry, very conference heavy. That all takes a toll over time, right? And so just making sure everything is dialed in, so you can, you get good sleep, you can handle the rigor of a constant travel schedule. And then that's directly tied, in my view, to business. The better you are from a personal level, health-wise, the better you will be showing up on a daily basis in your career.
I love this topic. And, Skylar, when we set up this interview in the first place, the primary motivation was tokenization, because I think wise investing is about principles and mindset for a large part, but we found out, it's just about performance as well. And finding out that you were kind of into these practices, again, that was just a real perk. And so I really wanted to ask you questions about that, because I think you're doing some pretty cool stuff. So I want to ask, could you walk us through a few of your daily or weekly practices that help you maintain energy and clarity?
Great question. I appreciate that. I'm passionate about this as well. So yeah, definitely. So my routine I travel quite a bit. It's just my schedule's a bit crazy. I'm sure like you guys is as well. So having that kind of routine, I live and die by my daily routine, and then weekly I do a few different things. One different modality is a cold plunge. I'm a big fan of the cold plunge. I do that 3 times a week. It helps with stress, lowers inflammation in your body, increases energy and alertness. So those are things I do. Sauna 3 times a week. So I work out basically 3 times a week. And with that, I do sauna. And then obviously I mentioned cold plunge on the other days too. So those are a couple of things. Other things, getting good sleep is crucial. That's something that had been good about in the past. And that really, I think having quality sleep is important. But outside of that, but really I think when you start to dig into the weeds, and this is what one thing I did early on when I kind of went down this journey, was really going to a functional medicine doctor and saying, hey, give me kind of the baseline of where I'm at. I can kind of guess, take supplements and do other things and try to get better sleep and go to the gym a couple of times. But tell me from a scientific point of view, what does my health look like? What does my blood work look like? And then let's tweak that from there. Let's go from that lens. And it was night and day from that point. So really kind of getting into the weeds of what does my health look like? How am I going to change that? And then come up with a game plan from there. So having kind of a health team around me every quarter to do my blood work, see where I'm at. Do we need to tweak this? Do we need to change this? And, as you get older, make sure your hormones are optimized. I would say that's, for anybody starting out, that'd be my personal recommendation, is to start from finding out where you're at today. What is your baseline? And getting all that checked out, and then having somebody who's in your corner take a look at that and say, hey, you know what, here's what we can do. We can start with this, can modify this. And then from there, then you can really kind of start these other things we talked about, and seeing what you can do to help yourself, whether it be, cold plunge or sauna, red light therapy. I do also hyperbaric chamber once or twice a month, which helps with, it's like getting sleep, going in there for half hour is like getting 6 hours of sleep or something. All these different things, increasing the red cell blood count in your body, faster healing. And then you can go down the aspect of peptides, which is what I also do as well. So I think it can be overwhelming when you have this topic of whether it be health and biohacking. But I think starting from where you're at is probably key, and then kind of building on that over time. But being consistent is definitely paramount. I would say you can do all kinds of things for your health and longevity, but starting where you're at and being consistent over time is going to pay dividends.
Wow, that's great. Of course, Rob, you notice you brought up that sleep thing again.
I know. You need to hear it, Rusty.
I know. I mean, I did have 4 hours last night after going to a football game. So, of course, I just feel guilty again, not getting enough sleep for this. But so I have a follow-up question on that. So you're doing all this stuff, and no doubt you feel great and your health data is improving. But do you really see a difference in your professional decision-making and leadership because of these practices?
I do. I do. Because I've thought about this for a while as I've gone through this, because at a certain point is it worth the blood, sweat, and tears to go through this process yourself? Because it's not easy, right? It's like you're going, trying to stay consistent when you're on the road, and it's, you get into a city at 2 a.m. Do you go to the gym like you normally would, or, at that time, but you miss your flight and now you have to kind of go through this process, or do you just go to bed and pick it up tomorrow, So it's definitely important to kind of think about kind of what that looks like.
Hey, I do have one follow-up question on the cold plunge.
Yes.
When you get on the cold plunge, what are some of the first words you say out loud?
Can you say it on this podcast?
I mean, I just want to get a picture of it. So,
great question. It's funny because this comes up quite a bit. I mean, how I started with the cold plunge, and really I started with a cold shower. The last part of my shower on a daily basis is turned to complete cold, and that can be a little tough. But when you get in a cold plunge, your body's entirely immersed in cold water, right? Which is your immediate reaction is to be like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here immediately. I'm going to die. That's some people say that, right? But it's not the case. It's just you have to let your body go through the motion of your inhaling, like you were like people do the cold plunge or the polar bear plunge in the winter, as we all know. Same thing. You jump in the cold water, immediately you lose your breath. You're kind of breathing for a second, sucking wind, and then your body, slowly, about 60 seconds or so, it gets into the rhythm. And that's really what it is. And at that point, I always tell people it's more of a mindset thing. So you have the health from a physical, but then you have the mental aspect of, because it's almost like meditative in a certain way. I have some friends who are big into meditation, and I had one friend who's like, hey, I have a hard time just clearing my mind. I'm like, get in a cold plunge. You won't think about anything but freezing. Focus immediately. And it was true. So it's just like, but I think just getting past the initial fear, you're not gonna freeze, and you're not gonna be there. Just a couple minutes in there to start, even just a minute. You can make a minute, then you make 2 minutes and do longer. And you'll find as you get to a consistent routine, that feeling, it's amazing. Some people would go from sauna to cold plunge, or cold plunge to sauna. Most people start with cold plunge to sauna. I go the other way because I've done it for so long, but it feels great. You're the feeling of that cooling effect for the rest of the day. Your joints feel great. Your mental clarity and energy just are off the roof. Crazy.
So I do cold showers myself, and in terms of the words I say, I can't say any because I've lost my breath. But I would say that it's, and a lot of people on this podcast listening are investment oriented people, and I would say it's one of the best trades you can make because it's 30 seconds of hell, but then for like 3 hours you feel awesome, and that's a really good trade. Now, of course, I say all of this. Some people probably shouldn't do cold showers or cold plunges due to heart conditions or something, but it's just an awesome trade to make. So.
It really is. Yeah, it's a great thing to do. That and sauna too, I say it's great. And red light therapy as well. All great things to help you.
Well, my next question is, if you wanted to make just a couple changes, 1 or 2 to boost energy and focus, what would you recommend? And I'm thinking sauna and cold plunge. Great
question. I would say initially, though, those are definitely on the list, but I would say going and getting that test from your doctor will tell you everything you need to know upstream, downstream going forward, and then you can take advantage of those modalities. And then your first 60 minutes waking up, changing that paradigm on a daily basis is crucial. Having a glass of water with some sea salt in it in the morning, first when you get up, going outside and getting sunlight in your retinas and taking a quick, 5-minute walk or something like that, having a maybe higher protein breakfast, those types of things, first 60 minutes of the day will change how your kind of rest of your day goes, honestly.
Yeah.
So true. We've talked about that before in the podcast. It definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Skylar, this has been such a great conversation. We appreciate you coming on the show. Before we let you go, we have 2 questions. Where can advisors follow your work and continue learning from you? And if they want a first small win today, what should they do right after listening to this podcast?
Yeah, great question. So where they can find me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I predominantly like LinkedIn most of the time. You can also find me at the Ascent Group, which I'm happy to provide the website as well. But basically, LinkedIn is where you can reach out to me. And then from what can they do as a next step, as far as what they can do today, I would say from a health perspective to obviously get that, to talk to their functional medicine doctor, get that process started. They're going to feel better, and their business is going to, benefit from them feeling better, being better from an energy point of view.
Yeah. Well, Skylar, thank you so much. This is a really fun interview. I do have one more question, though. And again, one of the primary drivers of this is, again, the concept of tokenization. So, again, I think we planted a seed for many listeners that this is an important topic and it's only going to grow in importance. But how can they learn more? Do you have any specific resources you could steer listeners toward in terms of just learning more about tokenization? Is it just as simple as going to YouTube and watching videos, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I would start with that. There's a lot of good information out there. I'm actually putting together a little report mid-September. I'm happy to share with you and your audience on just kind of tokenization framework, what it looks like, how people set it up. But yeah, I'd say starting with YouTube, I'll send you some information as well. You can share with the audience. And then also there's a few probably reports out there from like McKinsey and a few others that have written white papers on tokenization that are really good just to understand the overall ecosystem and what it looks like, current state and where it's going.
Great. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thanks for the biohacking tips. I love that stuff.
Absolutely. Me too. It's great stuff.
All right. Well, we will be back next week. Thanks for listening to Invest Well, Be Well. Let us know what you think. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe. This podcast is hosted by Rusty Vanneman and Robin Murray and produced by Garrett Crosby. Well, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening to Invest Well, Be Well. And hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe.
If you have feedback, guest suggestions, or just want to connect, please visit my website, rustysbridge.com, or email me directly at rusty@rustysbridge.com. Until next time, invest well and be well. This episode of Invest Well, Be Well is brought to you by Bonrian Capital, led by my friend and colleague of nearly 10 years, Shana Sissel. Shana was named a top 20 wealth tech CEO in 2025, and it's no surprise. She's passionate, does the work, and knows asset managers, portfolio allocations, and alternatives like few others in the business. She's authentic, tough, and deeply cares about all her stakeholders, the kind of character you'd expect from the daughter of a police officer. If you want an investment manager who combines deep due diligence with innovative solutions and alternative investments, please check out Bonrian Capital at bonriancapital.com.